Hello and welcome to Betfred Football Show. We know the champions. We know who's going to be in the Champions League. We know who's going to be in the Europa League. We're waiting to see who will be in the Europa Conference qualifiers. But there's three teams that could go down at the bottom of the table. And one man obviously has got a huge interest at the bottom of the table. He'll be at Elland Road on Sunday as well. Everton, the favourites to stay up. Because, of course, Leeds and Leicester need snookers. It is still in Everton's hands. Everton 11-4 to be relegated. Leicester 5's on. Leeds, you don't want to hear this, mate. Leeds are 1-33 to go down. Right then, you're going to be there on Sunday, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it, in all honesty. I think if they had it in their own hands, it might be different. But actually, the fact that they're relying on Bournemouth to get a result at Everton, listen, you don't become a bad team in one game or two games. This is a season. This is not just this season, this is last season. They were fighting relegation last season, the same as Everton. These two teams have been doing it last year, this year. If you play with fire too often, you're going to get burnt, aren't you? And it's looking like that Leeds, they've not been good enough over the course of a season, but to have it in your own hands is all you want on the last game of the season, and Everton have got that.
I think what is very, very difficult as well nowadays is it's changed from one man having a transistor radio in the stadium, isn't it? But if a goal is scored,
you know, don't you?
All the players will know straight away. So I suppose if you're Leeds, or obviously Everton or Leicester, you want to score first, don't you? Put
Absolutely,
the pressure in the teams. Or if you hear Bournemouth has scored first, what a lift that could be. It's
huge. I mean, the last game of the season, when there's this much at stake, it's going to be fantastic. There's going to be goals going in. There's going to be twists and changes. If Bournemouth score first at Everton and then Leeds go one up, all of a sudden, you've got hope. And then if Everton score, there's going to be so many permutations on this last day. It really is going to be. It's not one way you want skin in the game, put it that way. You don't want one of your teams there, like me. My old team, Leeds, play my other old team, Tottenham. So it's going to be a difficult one for me on Sunday.
We'll talk about Tottenham later, and still no manager. And obviously it's a big game for Spurs because they want European football. It could be the first year since 2010 with no European football.
Yeah, I mean, we talk all day about Spurs, the rudderless ship that they are. I mean, over 60 days since Antonio Conte got sacked, the search for a manager, everyone seems to be turning their back on him. I mean, Arne Slot now, the Feyenoord manager. That's a really, I think that's poor when you, from a Spurs point of view, right? But you're a club the size and stature of Tottenham Hotspur. Yes, I know Arne Slot's won the Dutch League. No disrespect to the Dutch League, but it's not the Premier League. He's got Champions League football to look forward to. But how much Champions League football? Probably a group stage at best with Feyenoord. And Tottenham can't get a manager away from Feyenoord. Nagelsmann distanced himself straight away. Pochettino didn't want the job. Everyone seems to be turning their back on the job. And now you're looking at Postecoglou, I think, and Brendan Rodgers are potentially favourites for the job. I just think the way that the whole thing's been handled, it could have been done a lot better.
We'll talk Spurs later. Let's talk the three key games, first of all. So let's talk Everton-Bournemouth. As we've said, it's in Everton's hands. They're about 2-5 to win the game. That's why they're 11-4 to go down. The Toffees have lost their final Premier League match in 5 of the last 6 seasons. So there's hope for Leeds and Leicester fans there. Everton are winless in the last 4 games at Goodison Park as well, drawing 1 and losing 3. They got that great draw, didn't they, at Wolves last week with the late equaliser. You were at that game as well.
Yeah, was there for 5 Live doing the commentary. 10 minutes injury time. Watched Everton, was really impressed with them in the first half. The first 20 minutes, half an hour, they didn't look like a team that was struggling. They looked like they were fighting for the manager. They had the high press. But then Patterson, his right back, went off and he had to bring Michael Keane on at right back. Lopetegui put Traore onto Michael Keane, which changed the game. And then, as we know, Calvert-Lewin's come off with a recurrence of his injury. And the recurrence didn't look like he would be playing this weekend. It'll be a huge miss for them this weekend because they're a different team when he plays. McNeil played it up there, played as a striker. And in the second half, actually, against Wolves, he put Iwobi as a central striker. And he looked a lot better. They look like they've got fight and desire. And I was impressed with the way that they played Everton. I can't see him getting beaten at home against Bournemouth. I know the old saying, Bournemouth's safe. They've been safe for a long time. Gary O'Neill's done a really good job there, but you just wonder what attitude the players are going to go there with. Goodison Park is going to be incredible. I mean, we saw it last year with all the pyrotechnics, the noise, what the fans did when the buses come in. It's just going to be one heck of an atmosphere at Goodison, and I think Everton have got enough to do it. I really do.
So what score do you predict then for Everton Bournemouth? I mean, draw could be enough as well for Everton. Well, of course, all three teams could lose as well, but
I just don't see him getting beaten. I think that the bet is back Everton not to lose. I think both teams will score, but I think it'll be a low scorer. I think it'll probably be a 1-1 or a 2-1 to Everton. I fancy Everton to sneak over the line, whether with a draw or win by 1 goal. I don't think it's going to be a high scoring game. Games that involve Everton, apart from away at Brighton, generally aren't. But Calvert-Lewin's not playing. I fancy Everton to nick it 2-1.
2-1 Everton. And obviously the maths are quite simple. If it finishes 2-1 Everton, they definitely obviously stay up, whatever happens in Leeds and Leicester's game. So Paul's going for 2-1 Everton. Right, next one, the game you're at. Leeds versus Spurs. So Leeds have won just one of their last 10 Premier League games. They've just dropped 25 points from winning positions. We're in front at West Ham on last Sunday as well.
They started the game really well against West Ham, and their Achilles heel, leaking goals, conceding too many goals, and that's been the case all season. Listen, I can sit here now, Leeds, Leicester, Everton, I can make a case for all three of them winning at the weekend. Yeah. If that happens, we know that Everton stay up. I can make a case for Leeds, but I just think, like Goodison Park, the atmosphere at Elland Road will be electric, but if they go 1 down or 2 down, it's almost kind of resigned to the inevitability.
Early goal at Goodison Park, we've mentioned. An early Bournemouth goal, then.
Try predicting this weekend. Yeah, it's huge. I think the atmosphere at both places could be either electric or turn pretty toxic pretty quickly. There's all the pressure on Leeds, but they're playing against the poor Tottenham side. If this was earlier on in the season, I could see Leeds beating this Tottenham team. But the way that Leeds' mentality and confidence is a huge thing as a footballer. The way you approach a game. You're going into a game knowing that your Premier League survival, as in a Premier League player, rests on this. You know you're carrying the hopes and expectations of a stadium full of fans, of a world full of your club's fans. And the expectation is really difficult to carry sometimes. And I just worry that Leeds might not handle the occasion.
What's gone wrong, then? He had a great first season under Bielsa. He went to the last day of the season last year and has stayed up. So what's gone wrong?
Recruitment. Manager recruitment, giving managers too much time, giving manager Jesse March too much time and too much money. They had, I've said this to you before, the worst 2 results that Leeds had this season were the best 2 results. Beating Liverpool at Anfield and beating Bournemouth at home in the same week. I think it was November before the World Cup break. They were playing as bad then as they are now, but those 2 results kept Jesse March in the job. Kept him in a job until February when Javi Gracia came in, and it was possibly too late. Javi Gracia came in, obviously wasn't the right man. Sacked Jesse March after allowing him to spend a load of money again in January on his own players again, Weston McKennie and others. Mark Rocker hasn't done it. He's a top championship player, probably at a push. Weston McKennie's not hit the heights that we expected of him. Wober's been a really good signing. Paid 35 million for Rutter in January. Club record. Can't get on the pitch, doesn't play. There's been too many players that have underperformed. Recruitment's been poor, and the managerial recruitment's been really poor as well.
Right, Spurs, quickly then. You've talked about the managerial vacancy. This managerial vacancy going on so long, what's Harry Kane thinking then? He's scored a goal in the final day of each. The last 5 seasons, Harry Kane has scored in the final day of a season.
I know what I'd be thinking if I was him. Seeing all these managers turn their back on the club and distance themselves from the club. The manager recruitment is going to be huge for him, for his decision as to what he does. There's the links with Manchester United are getting stronger and stronger, aren't they? You look at the links with Mason Mount today as well with Manchester United, with Liverpool. And these are going to be an option for him because Daniel Levy's a businessman. He's a very good businessman. He's not going to let Harry Kane go into the last year of his contract. He's not going to let him walk away on a free. It just doesn't make any sense. He's not going to get 100 million for him this window. If he wants to go, he can go. But I think this summer is going to be defining for him. Managerial appointment, Harry Kane's decision. If he stays, that's it. He's done. He's staying at Spurs for his whole career. This is his one chance to get out if he wants to go elsewhere.
So Spurs are probably going to have to win to have any chance to get European football next year.
Yeah, the big thing for the other teams around Leeds, for Everton and Leicester, is that Spurs are not finished. They've got something to play for. They'll be going to Elland Road and look for a performance, especially after a poor performance last week against Brentford. So Spurs will be going there to look for a result. And to be quite honest, Leeds' defence against the Spurs attack, you always fancy him to score a goal. They've got Harry Kane, Son, whether Richarlison plays, Kulusevski plays. The power that they've got in the final third will cause Leeds problems.
Do you dare predict then Leeds versus Spurs?
I hate. Listen, there's one prediction that I will give you: both teams to score. because Leeds can score and they normally start games well and get an early goal. Both teams to score, but I think might be one step too far for Leeds.
Go on and give us a score.
I'm going to have to sit on the fence. I have to. This is a real heart and head.
Yeah.
Head says Leeds are going to get beaten. Heart says 2-2.
2-2.
Yeah.
2-2, which obviously would not be enough for Leeds. They're going to have to beat Spurs at home and hope Everton don't get anything. Obviously, with the goal difference as well, Everton would have to lose and Leeds win for them to stay up. In theory, Everton could draw and then Leicester win, and then Leicester would stay up on goal difference as well. So, slightly more ajar for Leicester, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the different permutations, like you quite rightly said with the odds at the beginning of the show, Leeds 1-33 tells you everything. It really does. I mean, yeah, Leicester have got a chance, but still at 1-5, there's not going to be many people backing against Everton to stay up.
Right. Well, at the moment, you think Everton are going to do it, don't
Yeah,
you? By
I
beating
do.
Bournemouth at home 2-1. Right, let's look at the other game then. Leicester-West Ham. Well, Leicester nearly won it at St James's Park. I watched that on Monday night. They only really got going in the last 10 minutes, didn't they?
I was surprised because I was at their home game against Liverpool and they were poor, almost like resigned to relegation. And I think I sat in the studio and wrote them off before going up to St James's. Newcastle needed to win the game or a point for Champions League at the time, and you would just expect the way Newcastle are playing to blow away a Leicester team that were lacking in confidence. To be fair to Dean Smith, he went up there and he got a performance out of his players. Listen, Leicester shouldn't be in this predicament. The players they've got, the squad they've got, the quality that they've got in that side, out of those three teams that we're looking at, the quality that they've got, they shouldn't be here, Leicester, but they are. And listen, they've got a real opportunity to beat West Ham, but it might be too little too late because Everton, I just can't see how Everton are going to get beat at home. I really can't.
But if Everton only draw and the goal difference and Leicester win...
Yeah, Leicester have got a chance. Leicester really have. I think they've got a West Ham side now who have got one eye on the Europe Cup final, which is a massive achievement for them. They're going to end up having a great season, West Ham, if they can get a European trophy, because that European trophy, the Conference League, gives them a path into the Europa League next year. So that's it. And then you compare that to other teams in here, what type of season they've had. West Ham have had a fantastic season if they do that. A Europa League place and a cup. So West Ham will be distracted. I thought that against Leeds last weekend and hoped that they'd change it up. They didn't. Rice played, Paqueta played. They played a strong squad. Leicester have got a chance. I think it means more to Leicester than it does to West Ham. And I think Leicester will nick it. I don't think it'll be pretty, but I think Leicester will nick it. 2-0.
2-0. Right then, so the three key scores, Paul's predictions. Everton 2, Bournemouth 1, Leeds 2, Spurs 2, Leicester beating West Ham 2-0. So if that is the case, obviously Everton would stay up and Leicester and Leeds would
This is
join
coming back to haunt me, isn't it? You're going to bring this out next week when that doesn't happen at all and all the permutations are completely different.
I'm with you. I think it's going to be an up and down afternoon.
Yeah.
And I think the key is who scores first.
Absolutely.
And how the other teams then react.
The in-game betting will be key.
So, if Everton score first, then everyone gets deflated.
Yeah.
But if Bournemouth score first, that'll filter to the other grounds.
Yeah.
Or if Leeds can score first, or Leicester can score first. But look, do you know as a player then? So, right, obviously, let's take you back. Pretend you're playing in the Leeds goal on Sunday. The Leeds players will know if Bournemouth or Everton have scored, won't they?
Maybe not immediately, but as a goalkeeper, you get to sense it a little bit because you're obviously not involved all the time. You're near the crowd, so you do get to hear that. You'll hear a cheer, you'll hear or you'll hear somebody say something. But you're only going on hearsay. You don't know for definite because what I'll guarantee you these games they won't be doing is showing live scores at the ground. The manager won't want live scores going around the scoreboards. But the fans will know. The fans will know, but you have to look after yourself. You have to do your own job, as difficult as that may be. And it's hard to switch off from everything else. The first thing you do when you come in at half-time is look for other results. It's natural.
Yeah. And you've got three managers involved in Dean Smith. He's obviously survived with Villa, didn't he?
Yeah.
In pandemic year. Sean Dyche.
Yeah.
And Big Sam. All experienced.
All very experienced at that end of the table as well. I would just say one thing while we're talking about this. We've not talked about Nottingham Forest, who have done unbelievably well. The run that they've gone on to get out, because we're having this discussion who's going down. The fact they're not in it shows you what a job that Steve Cooper's done. And by the way, out of all them teams, they're the only one that hasn't changed the manager.
True. Right, you're at Elland Road on Sunday.
Yeah.
If you were allowed in the dressing room to give a team talk, what would you say then?
You make players aware of responsibilities, and it's not just about carrying the weight and the expectation of the fans. You've got your own personal pride. Do you want to be a Premier League footballer? You ask the players. Someone might inwardly think, oh, it's okay, I'll be off anyway. And there is that attitude in some players. It's all right, I won't be here next year anyway. But the nucleus of the squad will be there next year, and you've got a relegation on your CV. Listen, I've got 2 relegations on my CV, and I'm not proud of it at all. You can speak from experience, but it's not something you look back with fondness at all. To be relegated, it's horrible, and the feeling that you get until you've experienced it, you can't pass that feeling on to somebody. You can't let them know. But you tell the lads about their professional pride, their own ability, their want to be a Premier League footballer or a Championship footballer. Listen, do you want to go away next year to Man United, Chelsea or Plymouth? You kind of point things out like that, and you can only do so much. It's about the mentality that you send them over the white line with.
Now, Sean Dyche's team talk's a lot easier, isn't it? You go and win it, you stay up.
Yeah.
So if you're Dean Smith and Big Sam, what do you say about the other games?
I don't think they touch on it. Knowing Sam like I do, having played for him, I think they keep their own shop in order, if you like. They basically control the controllables. It's the old phrase. We look after what we do in here. If anything else outside this wall, outside these stadiums happen out of our control, we probably should have done something about it a little bit earlier. But for today, we look after ourselves.
Right, let's whip through the other games. Obviously, there is that place in the Europa Conference up for grabs, but other than that, not a lot else riding on the final day. Arsenal Wolves. Quick word on Arsenal's season. Will I look back on missed opportunities? Yeah,
of course they will. On the grander scale of things, it's been a fantastic achievement for them. It's been a great season for them. But actually, they're not walking away with the trophy. They've got Champions League football, which at the start of the season was something that they would have probably snapped your hand off for. They had a real opportunity to win this league. They were 8 points clear at the start of April, and they only had the league to focus on. So yes, it's a huge missed opportunity. There's 2 ways of looking at it. Optimistic, pessimistic. They've had a huge improvement they've got in the Champions League. They're put in a title challenge. They had the other side of it is they had the title in their own hands and they've let it go. So there's 2 sides to look at it. But yes, I would say they've had a successful season.
Give us a scoreline for Arsenal Wolves.
All these games now that have got nothing on it for these games where players you're not going to move up and down the table. I think your bet's goals. It really is. I think there's goals in these games. So whether it's a 2-1, a 3-1, I think Arsenal win. I saw Wolves last week against Everton. I thought they'd be on the beach. They weren't. They put in a performance. I'll go Arsenal 3-1.
3-1 Arsenal. Right then, Aston Villa, Brighton. Aston Villa have still got something to play for this Europa Conference. What a job he has done, by the way, Unai Emery. But we're, 16th when he took over, just 1 point above the relegation zone.
2 of the managers of the season.
European football.
2 of the managers of the season in this game. De Zerbi and Unai Emery. Unai Emery's done incredibly well, and I just think his media perception isn't the same as Jurgen Klopp, isn't the same as Pep Guardiola, but I just think the job that he's done now and what he's been able to do on the training ground is excellent. This is probably the game of the weekend. If you apart from the relegation battle, this is the game of the weekend because Brighton have had an outstanding season and Villa want to try and get in Europe. I think Brighton are unpredictable though, aren't they, at the moment? I think Villa could nick this. I'm going to go 2-1 Villa.
2-1 Villa. Right, Brentford, Man City. Obviously, Man City still got the FA Cup final and the Champions League final.
Yeah, I don't think, Brentford can't move in the league. Brentford finished 9th in the league, guaranteed a top 10 finish for the first time in a long time. It's going to be a much changed Manchester City, but Pep's a master at putting the right amount of minutes in the players' legs, regardless of what team that City play. I think they'll win it. I don't think this will be a cracker. I'm going to go 2-0 City.
2-0 City. Right, Chelsea, Newcastle. Right, 22 defeats for Chelsea now. This is their worst season since 1978-79 when they got relegated that year as well. They were woeful at Old Trafford on Thursday night. Newcastle have got that Champions League football. I tell you what, at the beginning of the season, last day, Chelsea-Newcastle, you'd have thought there was probably going to be something riding on it. There is nothing riding on it. Chelsea are going to finish in the bottom half and Newcastle are guaranteed Champions League football.
Listen, Chelsea have only just survived in this league. 43 points. You get to 40 points as a mark to stay in this league. That just gives you an example of what a poor season they've had. There's no excuses for it. Look at the quality of players that they've amassed. The huge amount of players is probably a huge issue there. The managerial changes haven't helped, but the players have to have a personal responsibility. Yes, you bring Frank in, you can blame the manager to a certain extent, but actually the quality that they've got, the money they've spent, their season's been a disaster, an absolute disaster. We were speaking off air before about Pochettino going in there. He's got a free hit next year. They're going to finish 12th, 11th or 12th this year. Their expectation from a Chelsea supporter's point of view is probably the lowest it's been for a number of years. What does Pochettino do next year? Challenges for a European place and puts a smile back on people's faces. So for me, Pochettino going in there for him is a no-brainer because he's got a full pre-season and then he's almost got a free hit for a full season, really, because he's not going to underachieve like they have this year. I think they'll go again next year, Chelsea. I think they'll push on.
What score?
Having said that, we're talking about the Chelsea here and now and the one that played at Old Trafford. I think Newcastle will go there and they'll win 3-1 Newcastle. Definitely goals in all these games, all of them.
Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest. Well done to Roy Hodgson. Certainly turned it around when he took over. And, well, you mentioned it, Steve Cooper.
Yeah.
What a job he's done.
Incredible. Both these two managers. You look at how Palace have avoided relegation as well. It's Forest's recent run of form that have done it. But since Roy Hodgson's come in, he was famed for his defending. They've been open, free scoring, attacking, playing to their strengths. This will probably be a good watch for the neutral. Again, I think this will be quite a relaxed game. Goals in this one. I think it'll be, listen, it's a 1-1, it's a 2-2. But I think your value is backing goals in all these games this weekend where there's nothing riding on it. 2-2.
Then Man United Fulham. Man United secured Champions League football with that win over Chelsea last night. Ten Hag was saying they want to go for third, so want to beat Fulham. Also, you would probably keep that bit of momentum going into the cup final.
Yeah, absolutely, he will. And Fulham have fallen off a little bit, haven't they? We spent a lot of the first half of the season.
Ironically, Fulham probably should have knocked him out of the FA Cup until Mitrovic lost his head.
Mitrovic imploded, the manager got suspended, and I think from there, Fulham haven't really been the same, have they? They lost Mitrovic for 8 games like they did. I think they've fallen off a little bit. I think they'll have it all on to go again next year. I don't think they'll do as well next year. But like you rightly say about United, the momentum that they want, they're going to try and put a spanner in the works with City as well in the FA Cup final, play like they did last night against Chelsea. Listen, it's a one-off game. They've got a chance against City. I think they're going to want to finish third and go into that game with momentum.
And a quick word on Ten Hag. Obviously, finishing in the top 4, won the Carabao Cup, got a chance of winning the FA Cup. Obviously, outsiders against Man City. Well, it's job done in his first season, isn't it?
I think yes. I think he's achieved a lot. I think from where they were, recruitment-wise as well, he's made big decisions. You know, we talk about Ronaldo. I mean, that seems like years ago, doesn't it? We forget how recent, excuse me, the decisions that he made on him. Made huge decisions with Harry Maguire. Played Luke Shaw and Lindelof at centre-halves. I don't think his squad's anywhere near what he would want, ideally. But listen, Champions League football and a pot in the cabinet. There's a lot of other teams that have taken that. There's certainly no one in North London that would have had that as well.
What score?
I think United will win. I'm going to go 3-0. I think it'll be comfortable for them.
And then finally, Southampton, Liverpool. Salah tweeted last night, didn't he? He was devastated. There was no Champions League football. Jurgen Klopp's tried to distance himself from those comments this morning, basically saying, look, he knows he'll create headlines, but he basically gave up Champions League football when they drew with Villa.
Yeah, I mean, Jurgen Klopp was quite wise in his press conference this morning. I listened to it on the way in here on the radio, and he basically just didn't want to sensationalise any headline because anything that he said regarding Salah, people would sensationalise and the media would make a big issue out of it. I thought he actually did really well in playing it down, saying, look, he's understandably hurt, we all are, but we are where we are, we move on type thing.
I think, obviously, they're disappointed not to get Champions League football because of, obviously, Liverpool's standing, but if we rewind probably 8 weeks, Europa League football looked like there was no chance.
They had no chance of any type of European football.
And they went on this 7 straight wins.
Yeah, that's what we've been waiting for Liverpool to do that all year, and they've obviously left it a little bit too late to get the Champions League, which they have. But European football for them, listen, it's not going to be ideal. Liverpool as a club are not going to want a Thursday, Sunday season next year, which it's going to be. But for them, I don't think it'll have an issue attracting players because a club like Liverpool with the history, the stature they've got, they get players through the door anyway.
What score?
I'll pick as many as you want. Southampton have gone. Liverpool are on a really good run. I think they'll go on and win it. This will be 4-5 Liverpool, without a doubt.
Right, 3 huge playoff games to talk about before we finish. Saturday, 4:45. Well, one of the biggest games in football now, isn't it? Coventry-Luton.
Tell you what, if anybody had a couple of quid on this at the start of the season, you'd make some money, wouldn't you? There's not many people that would pick this as a playoff final. I mean, you look at it, 10 points between them, though. Luton finishing in third. I mean, both have had sensational seasons. And what a story it is for both clubs. I mean, Luton, they were in non-league football not so long ago. I mean, the last time they were at Luton were in the Premier League was, I think, its debut year. Coventry as well, it's been such a long time that either of these two clubs have. It really is, it's a romanticism, a fairy story for both of them to be there. I make Luton slight favourites, just on the amount of points that they finished ahead of Coventry in the league. But they played each other twice this year, and they had 2 draws. So we all know that anything can happen in a playoff, and these two weren't been able to separate when they played each other this year. So it'll be tough, and it'll be tight, but I make Luton slight favourites.
Sunday, Carlisle versus Stockport in League Two.
Yeah, this is the closest one. I mean, they finished 4th and 5th respectively, and this one was only a 3-point gap between them. I think Carlisle got a bit of momentum going into the playoffs. This one, again, it's a really, really tough one to call. I mean, I can see this going all the way. This one's a penalties job.
And then Monday, I think this would be a cracker. Barnsley, Sheffield Wednesday.
I mean, the job that Darren Moore's done at Sheffield Wednesday, 96 points and they still don't go up. This is another one, 3rd and 4th, but 10 points gap between the two. I mean, 96 points, they don't go up. They must be feeling hard done to Wednesday. I mean, they got through the last round of Peterborough, and probably one of the best games ever when they overturned the 4 goals, didn't they, against Peterborough. Michael Duff at Barnsley has done an incredible job with what he's done with that team, the budget he's got. I just worry that this might be one step too far, so I think Darren Moore's Sheffield Wednesday will get through.
Right, thanks for your company, and Paul will be back next week. Previewing the Champions League in a couple of weeks' time. Next week's the FA Cup. We're going to have Lou Macari and Michael Brown previewing the FA Cup final, and a week after, Paul will be here previewing the Champions League final. I don't really know what to ask you as an end question. How's your nerves?
Yeah, listen, it is what it is. I'm quite resigned to the fact. I think they've left it too late. I really do. I think Everton will get the job done. I can't make a case for Everton getting beat at home, and I think that puts the mockers on everything else, doesn't it? But never say never.
Right, try and enjoy the final day of the season. If you're having a bet, please keep it fun and gamble responsibly. See you next week.